They called him paranoid. Crazy. The guy who wasted $30,000 digging a hole in his backyard. But on May 20th, 2013, when the EF5 tornado hit Moore, Oklahoma, Gary Henderson wasn't laughing. And neither were his neighbors. The ones who survived anyway. Gary Henderson bought the house on Briarwood Avenue in 2009. Standard 3-bedroom ranch. Nice yard. Quiet street. Moore was a good place to raise a family. Affordable. Safe. Except for one thing. Moore sits in the heart of Tornado Alley. The most tornado-prone region on Earth. A place where the atmosphere turns violent with statistical regularity. Where supercells form with the reliability of clockwork. Where people die because they don't take the threat seriously. Gary took it seriously. In 2010, Gary started digging. Not a basement. A shelter. An underground reinforced concrete bunker designed to withstand an EF5 tornado. The strongest tornadoes on Earth. Winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. The kind of wind that turns houses into splinters and throws cars through the air like toys. Gary studied the engineering. He read the FEMA guidelines. He consulted with structural engineers. And then he spent $30,000 building something his neighbors thought was insane. The neighbors laughed. Gary's next-door neighbor, Tom, made jokes about the apocalypse bunker. Asked Gary if he was expecting zombies or Russians. Gary's response was simple. I'm expecting a tornado. Tom laughed. We've lived here for 20 years. Never been hit. Gary didn't argue. He just kept building. By 2011, the shelter was complete. 10 feet underground. Reinforced concrete walls, 12 inches thick. Steel reinforced door. Ventilation system. Stocked with water, first aid supplies, and emergency provisions. Capacity for 12 people. Gary gave his neighbors a standing invitation. If a tornado comes, the door is open. Most of them declined. They'd take their chances in their interior bathrooms. That's what everyone did. That's what worked. Until it didn't. If you're watching this and you live in Tornado Alley, if you've ever heard a tornado warning and stayed in your house thinking you'd be fine, then you need to hear this story. Hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the like button. Share this video with everyone you know who lives in tornado country. This isn't entertainment. This is survival. Now let's talk about what happened on May 20th, 2013. The morning starts with a moderate risk forecast. The Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, issues the alert at 6 a.m. Moderate risk for severe weather across central Oklahoma. Tornadoes likely. Large hail. Damaging winds. It's not the first moderate risk day of the season. It won't be the last. For most people and more, it's just another day. They go to work. Kids go to school. Life continues normally. Because moderate risk doesn't sound that bad. It sounds manageable. Survivable. But moderate risk is the second highest threat level the Storm Prediction Center issues. The only higher level is high risk. And high risk days are rare. Moderate risk days kill people. This one will kill 24. Gary Henderson sees the forecast at 7 a.m. while drinking his coffee. He's a mechanical engineer. He understands statistics. He knows that moderate risk means a significant tornado event is likely. Not possible. Likely. He checks the atmospheric parameters. CAPE values over 4,000 joules per kilogram. That's extreme instability. Wind shear exceeding 50 knots. That's rotation. Dew points in the upper 60s. That's moisture. Every ingredient for a violent tornado is present. Gary makes a decision. He's not going to work today. He's staying home. He tells his wife, Linda. She protests. It's probably nothing. We've been through this before. Gary insists. I have a bad feeling. Linda agrees to stay home. Their two kids are at Plaza Towers Elementary School. Gary considers pulling them out early. He decides against it. The school has a plan. Interior hallways. Away from windows. It should be enough. It won't be. By noon, storms are forming along the dry line in western Oklahoma. The first cells develop near Weatherford. They're rotating immediately. Within an hour, tornado warnings are issued. The first tornado touches down near Chickasha at 1:30 p.m. It's brief, weak, EF0 intensity. It lifts after 5 minutes. But it's the beginning. The atmosphere is primed. More storms are developing. More cells are rotating. The big one is coming. At 2 p.m., A supercell forms southwest of Newcastle. This one is different. The storm structure is textbook perfect. A towering cumulonimbus cloud with an anvil top spreading out at 50,000 feet. A wall cloud rotating at the base. A hook echo visible on radar. The signature of a tornadic supercell. Meteorologists at the National Weather Service office in Norman are watching. This is the one. This is what they've been dreading all day. At 2:40 p.m., the tornado touches down near Newcastle. It's immediately violent. The tornado is a mile wide from the start. Not a thin rope. A wedge. A churning mass of debris and condensation that spans from the ground to the cloud base. It's on the ground and it's not lifting. It's tracking northeast, directly toward Moore. The projected path goes right through the center of town. Right through Plaza Towers Elementary. Right through Briarwood Elementary. Right through hundreds of homes. Right through Gary Henderson's neighborhood. At 2:45 p.m., tornado warnings are issued for Moore. The wording is urgent. This is a particularly dangerous situation. A large and extremely dangerous tornado is on the ground. If you're in the path of this storm, take cover immediately. This is a life-threatening situation. The warnings are broadcast on television, radio, weather apps, emergency alert systems. Sirens wail across the city. Everyone hears the warnings. Not everyone acts. Gary Henderson hears the sirens. He's been monitoring the storm on radar for the past hour. He knows it's coming. He goes to his backyard and opens the shelter door. He calls Linda. It's time. Get in the shelter. Now. Linda hesitates. The sky doesn't look that bad. It's cloudy, sure, but it's not dark. The sun is still visible. Gary doesn't argue. He grabs the emergency bag, the one he packed 3 years ago and refreshes every 6 months. Water, first aid kit, flashlights, battery-powered radio. He descends the stairs into the shelter. Linda follows. At 2:50 p.m., Gary's neighbor Tom knocks on the door. Gary answers. Tom's face is pale. He's holding his 5-year-old daughter. His wife is behind him, carrying a baby. Can we come in? Tom's voice is shaking. Gary doesn't hesitate. Get in. Now. Tom's family descends into the shelter. 30 seconds later, another knock. Gary's neighbor from across the street, Margaret, an 80-year-old widow. She's alone, terrified. Gary helps her down the stairs. Another knock. A young couple from 2 houses down. They don't have a basement. Their bathroom has a window. They're terrified. Gary lets them in. Within 5 minutes, 9 people are in the shelter. The door is still open. Gary stands at the entrance, scanning the street. Anyone else? No one. The street is empty. Everyone else is sheltering in place. In their homes. In their bathrooms. In their interior closets. Gary closes the door. Seals it. Locks it. They're as safe as they can be. Inside the shelter, it's cramped but calm. 9 people in a space designed for 12. There's enough room. Barely. Gary turns on the battery-powered radio. Tuned to the local weather station. The meteorologist's voice is urgent. The tornado is now on the ground and more. It is large. It is violent. If you're in the path, take cover immediately. Get underground if possible. If you cannot get underground, get to an interior room on the lowest floor. Stay away from windows. This tornado is life-threatening. The broadcast continues. The tornado is moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. It is currently near Telephone Road and Santa Fe Avenue. It is tracking toward Briarwood and Plaza Towers elementary schools. If you are in these areas, take cover now. Gary's blood runs cold. His kids are at Plaza Towers. He looks at Linda. She's crying. The school has a plan, Gary says. They'll be okay. He doesn't believe it. Neither does she. But there's nothing they can do. They're locked in a concrete box underground. They can't leave. They can't help. They can only wait. And pray. At 3:01 p.m., the tornado hits Briarwood Elementary. The school is a single-story building, wood frame construction, built in the 1960s. It's not designed to withstand an EF5 tornado. When the tornado strikes, the building explodes. Walls collapse. The roof is torn away. Children and teachers are in interior hallways, huddled against walls, covering their heads. It's not enough. 7 children die at Briarwood, crushed by falling debris. Teachers die, trying to shield students with their bodies. The school is reduced to rubble in seconds. At 3:15 p.m., the tornado hits Plaza Towers Elementary. Gary's kids are there. The school is newer than Briarwood, built in the 1990s, but it's still wood frame construction. When the tornado strikes, the result is the same. The building disintegrates. Third graders are in the hallway. They're holding onto walls. Teachers are covering them with their bodies. The walls collapse. The roof comes down. 7 children die at Plaza Towers. One of them is Kyle Davis, 8 years old, a friend of Gary's son. Gary will learn this later. Right now, he's sitting in the shelter, listening to the radio, hearing the meteorologist describe the tornado passing over the schools. Significant damage reported at Plaza Towers Elementary. Multiple structures destroyed. The exact wording. Significant damage. Gary knows what that means. At 3:20 p.m., the tornado reaches Gary's neighborhood, Briarwood Avenue, the street where Gary lives, where Tom lives, where Margaret lives, where a dozen families live in single-family homes built in the 1970s and 1980s. Wood frame, composition roofs, no basements, standard suburban construction, not built for EF5 winds. The tornado is at peak intensity, winds exceeding 210 miles per hour. The enhanced Fujita scale doesn't go higher than EF5. This is the upper limit of what the scale can measure. This is wind that scours foundations clean, that throws cars half a mile, that turns concrete into projectiles. This is unsurvivable above ground. Inside the shelter, they hear it. Not a roar, a scream, the sound of wind moving at velocities that exceed human comprehension. The sound of the atmosphere tearing itself apart. The shelter shakes. The walls vibrate. Dust falls from the ceiling. The lights flicker but stay on. The ventilation system howls as air pressure fluctuates. Tom's daughter is crying. Margaret is praying. The young couple is holding each other. Linda is gripping Gary's hand so heart hurts. Gary is staring at the ceiling, listening, calculating. The shelter was designed to withstand this. 12-inch reinforced concrete, steel rebar, anchored to bedrock. But theory and reality are different things. He doesn't know if it will hold. He doesn't know if the door will seal. He doesn't know if they'll survive. The shaking intensifies. Something massive impacts the ground above them. The entire shelter jolts. A crack appears in the ceiling. Water begins dripping through. Gary's heart stops. If the ceiling fails, they're dead, crushed by collapsing concrete and the debris of the entire neighborhood piled on top. But the crack doesn't widen. The drip doesn't increase. The ceiling holds. The walls hold. The door holds. The shelter is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's saving their lives. And then it stops. The roar ends. The shaking stops. Silence. Not peaceful silence. The silence of absence. The absence of sound that should be there. No birds. No traffic. No wind. Just silence. Gary waits. He counts to 60. He counts again. He checks his watch. 3:25 p.m. The tornado passed over them 5 minutes ago. It's safe. Probably. He turns to the others. Stay here. I'm going to check outside. Tom volunteers to come with him. Gary agrees. 2 sets of eyes. Gary unlocks the door. It opens smoothly. The hinges are intact. The seal held. He climbs the stairs, pushes open the hatch, emerges into daylight, and stops. His neighborhood is gone. Not damaged. Gone. Every house on the street is reduced to its foundation. Piles of splintered wood and twisted metal are scattered across bare concrete slabs. Cars are overturned, stacked on top of each other. A pickup truck is wrapped around a tree. Gary's house is gone. The walls, the roof, the rooms where his family lived, all erased. What remains is the foundation and the shelter entrance. The concrete bunker sticking up from the ground like a gravestone. Tom emerges behind Gary, sees his house, collapses to his knees, starts sobbing. His house is gone too. Margaret's house, the young couple's house, every structure on the block, all gone. But they're alive. All 9 people in shelter. Alive. Uninjured. Because Gary built a bunker. Because he took the threats seriously. Because he didn't listen to the people who called him paranoid. He saved 9 lives, including his own. Before we go further, you need to understand something. This isn't luck. This is preparation. If you're sitting there thinking this could never happen to you, you're wrong. If you live in Tornado Alley, this is a statistical certainty, not a possibility. A certainty, so do something about it. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button. Share this video. And then go build a shelter. Or buy one. Or find out where the nearest public shelter is. Because when the tornado comes, and it will come, you won't have time to figure it out. Now let's continue. Gary and Tom help the others out of the shelter. Linda emerges and immediately start calling their kids. No signal. The cell towers are down. She tries again. Nothing. Gary tells her they need to get to Plaza Towers. On foot. The roads are impassable, blocked by debris. They start walking. The journey is surreal. They're walking through what used to be a neighborhood. Now it's a debris field. Unrecognizable. No landmarks. No street signs. No houses to provide reference points. Just rubble. They pass bodies. A woman in a driveway, crushed by a collapsed garage. An elderly man in what used to be a living room, impaled by a wooden beam. They keep walking. They don't stop. They can't. Plaza Towers Elementary is half a mile away. It takes them 40 minutes to walk it. When they arrive, the school is surrounded by emergency responders, fire trucks, ambulances, parents frantically searching for their children. Gary and Linda push through the crowd. They're looking for their kids. A teacher recognizes them, directs them to a staging area where students are being reunited with parents. Gary's son is there, alive, shaken, covered in dust, but alive. His daughter is there too. She's crying. She has a cut on her forehead, but she's alive. They hug their children. They cry. They're safe. But not everyone is. 7 children died at Plaza Towers. 7 families who will never see their kids again. Gary thinks about Kyle, his son's friend. He sees Kyle's parents on the other side of the staging area. He can tell from their faces. Kyle didn't make it. Gary turns away. He can't watch. The guilt is overwhelming. His kids survived. Kyle didn't. Why? Random chance. The math of survival in an EF5 tornado. Gary's kids were in a section of the hallway that held. Kyle was 3 feet away in a section that collapsed. 3 feet. That's the difference between life and death. The death toll from a Moore tornado is 24. 7 at Plaza Towers Elementary. 7 at Briarwood Elementary. 10 in residential areas, crushed in their homes or struck by debris while trying to flee. The economic damage is staggering. Over $2 billion. 1,150 homes destroyed. 2,400 others damaged. But the real toll is in the lives shattered. The children who watched their classmates die. The parents who lost everything. The community torn apart. More will rebuild, but it will never be the same. Gary Henderson becomes a local hero. News crews interview him. He appears on national television. The man who built a bunker and saved 9 lives. People call him a genius. A visionary. The same people who called him paranoid 3 years earlier. Gary doesn't feel like a hero. He feels guilty. Guilty that he didn't convince more people to take the threat seriously. Guilty that he didn't build a bigger shelter. Guilty that he survived when others didn't. But Gary also becomes an advocate. He starts speaking at community meetings, at city council sessions, at schools. He shows photos of his destroyed neighborhood. Photos of the shelter, intact, surrounded by rubble. He talks about the engineering, the cost, the planning. He makes the case that underground shelters should be mandatory in Tornado Alley. That every home should have one. That every school should have one. That the cost of building them is nothing compared to the cost of not having them. The response is mixed. Some people listen. After the Moore tornado, shelter sales in Oklahoma spike. Companies that manufacture residential tornado shelters see a 400% increase in orders. FEMA offers grants to help homeowners install shelters. Some schools retrofit their buildings with reinforced safe rooms. But many people still don't act. They think it won't happen to them. They think their bathroom is enough. They think they'll hear the warning and have time to get to a public shelter. They're wrong. Let's talk about shelter design. Because if you're going to survive an EF5 tornado, you need to understand what works and what doesn't. Gary Henderson's shelter was designed according to FEMA P 320 guidelines. These are the federal standards for residential safe rooms. The key requirements are simple. The structure must withstand winds of 250 miles per hour. It must resist penetration by debris traveling at 100 miles per hour. It must be anchored to resist uplift and overturning. And it must have a strong connection between all components, walls, roof, door, so that the structure acts as a single unit. There are three main types of tornado shelters. Underground shelters like Gary's. Above-ground safe rooms, typically built inside a garage or basement. And community shelters, larger structures that serve multiple families. Each has advantages and disadvantages. Underground shelters offer the best protection. They're below grade, which means they're shielded from wind and debris. The earth itself acts as additional reinforcement, but they're vulnerable to flooding. If groundwater rises or if heavy rain accompanies the tornado, an underground shelter can fill with water. You need a sump pump. You need drainage. You need to plan for the worst-case scenario. Above-ground safe rooms are easier to access. No stairs to navigate. Better for elderly or disabled individuals. But they're exposed to wind and debris. The walls must be thicker. The door must be stronger. And they're more expensive to build. A typical above-ground safe room costs 50% more than an equivalent underground shelter. Community shelters are the most cost-effective option for neighborhoods. One large shelter can serve dozens of families, but they require advanced planning. You need to know where the shelter is. You need to be able to reach it quickly, and you need to trust that it will be open when you need it. Gary's shelter cost $30,000 in 2010. That's equivalent to about $38,000 in today's dollars. It's not cheap, but it's not prohibitively expensive either. For comparison, the average American spends $40,000 on a new car. A car depreciates. A shelter saves lives. The question is what you prioritize. Gary prioritized safety. His neighbors prioritized other things. When the tornado came, the difference was life and death. The construction process for an underground shelter is straightforward but labor-intensive. First, you excavate. Dig a hole 10 feet deep, 8 feet wide, and 12 feet long. The dimensions can vary, but those are typical for a shelter that holds 12 people. You need a backhoe for this. DIY excavation is not realistic unless you have experience and equipment. Hire a contractor. Budget $3,000 for excavation and site prep. Next, you pour the foundation. 4 inches of reinforced concrete. Steel rebar on 12-inch centers. This is the floor of your shelter. It needs to be thick enough to support the weight of the walls and roof, plus any debris that might pile on top. Budget $2,000 for concrete and labor. While the foundation cures, you build the walls. The standard is concrete masonry units, CMUs, reinforced with rebar and filled with concrete. 12-inch thick walls are the minimum for EF5 protection. Each wall is built in sections, with vertical rebar extending from the foundation and horizontal rebar tying the courses together. Budget $5,000 for materials and labor. The roof is the critical component. It must span the full width of the shelter without interior support. That means a reinforced concrete slab, at least 6 inches thick, with rebar on 6-inch centers. The roof is poured in place, using wooden forms to hold the concrete while it cures. This is the most expensive part of the project. Budget $8,000 for materials and labor. The door is equally critical. It must seal completely to prevent wind and debris from entering. Steel doors are standard, with multiple locking points and gaskets to create an airtight seal. A proper tornado shelter door costs $2,000. Don't cheap out on the door. It's the only point of entry and the most vulnerable part of the structure. Finally, you need ventilation. An underground shelter with no air exchange will suffocate its occupants in minutes. Install a PVC vent pipe, 4 inches in diameter, extending from the shelter to the surface. Add a filtered vent cap to prevent debris from entering. And install a battery-powered fan to circulate air. Budget $1,000 for ventilation components. Total cost, $30,000. That's the baseline. If you want upgrades, a bathroom, a larger capacity, thicker walls, the cost increases. But $30,000 buys you a shelter that will protect 12 people from an EF5 tornado. That's $2,500 per life. You can't buy life insurance that cheap. Gary's shelter had features beyond the basics. He installed LED lighting powered by a solar panel and battery bank. He stocked the shelter with 3 days of water and non-perishable food. He added a first aid kit, a battery-powered radio, flashlights, blankets, and a chemical toilet. These aren't luxuries. They're necessities. Because after the tornado passes, you might not be able to leave immediately. The shelter entrance could be blocked by debris. The hatch could be jammed. You might need to wait for rescue. Having supplies means you can wait comfortably and safely. Gary also practiced. Every 6 months, he conducted a drill. He timed how long it took his family to get from the house to the shelter. He tested the radio. He checked the door seal. He rotated the water and food supplies. He treated the shelter like a piece of critical infrastructure. Because that's what it is. It's not a novelty. It's not a conversation piece. It's life support equipment. And like all life support equipment, it needs to be maintained. On May 20th, 2013, Gary's preparation paid off. When the tornado came, he didn't panic. He didn't hesitate. He didn't waste time deciding what to do. He executed the plan he'd practiced dozens of times. Get to the shelter. Seal the door. Wait for the storm to pass. Simple. Effective. Life-saving. The people who died and more didn't have a plan. Or they had a plan that failed. Sheltering in a bathroom works for weak tornadoes. It doesn't work for EF5s. The bathrooms were destroyed along with the rest of the houses. The interior closets were crushed. The hallways collapsed. Above-ground structures, even well-built ones, cannot survive direct hits from EF5 tornadoes. The only reliable protection is underground or in a reinforced safe room. After the Moore tornado, Gary received hundreds of messages. People asking for advice. People thanking him for sharing his story. People who wanted to build their own shelters but didn't know where to start. Gary created a website. He published the plans for his shelter. He listed contractors who specialize in tornado shelter construction. He provided cost estimates, engineering specifications, and maintenance checklists. He turned his experience into a resource. Because he understood that his survival wasn't just luck. It was knowledge. And knowledge, when shared, saves lives. The statistics tell the story. In 2013, Oklahoma had 31 tornado fatalities. 24 of them were in Moore. In 2014, the state had 5 tornado fatalities. In 2015, 0. In 2016, 0. The reduction isn't because tornadoes stopped forming. It's because people started preparing. Shelter installations increased. Warning systems improved. Awareness grew. The Moore tornado was a wake-up call. People heard it. Some of them, anyway. But complacency returns. It always does. By 2019, shelter installations had declined to pre-Moore levels. People moved on. New residents moved to Oklahoma, unaware of the history. The memory faded. Until the next tornado. And there's always a next tornado. On March 25th, 2015, an EF4 tornado struck Sand Springs, Oklahoma. 2 people died. Both were in mobile homes. Neither had access to a shelter. On May 27, 2019, an EF3 tornado hit El Reno. 8 people died. Some were in vehicles trying to flee. Others were in homes without basements. The pattern repeats. Tornado strikes. People die. Awareness spikes. Installations increase. Complacency returns. People die. It's a cycle. And the only way to break it is individual action. If you live in Tornado Alley, you have 3 options. Build a shelter. Buy a shelter. Or identify a public shelter within 5 minutes of your home. Those are your options. Hoping a tornado won't hit you is not a strategy. Trusting that your bathroom will protect you is not a strategy. Planning to outrun a tornado in your car is not a strategy. These are gambits. And gambits fail. Gary Henderson had a strategy. And on May 20th, 2013, his strategy saved 9 lives. I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. If you live in Tornado Alley and you don't have a shelter, you're gambling with your life. And if you have kids, you're gambling with their lives. That's not an exaggeration. That's not fear-mongering. That's statistical reality. EF4 and EF5 tornadoes strike Oklahoma an average of once every 2 years. They strike Kansas, Nebraska, Texas, Arkansas, and Missouri with similar frequency. If you live in these states, you're in the path. The question is not if a tornado will hit your area. The question is when. And when it does, will you survive? Gary Henderson survived because he prepared. He didn't wait for the government to mandate shelters. He didn't wait for his homeowners association to install a community shelter. He didn't wait for his neighbors to split the cost. He acted. He took responsibility for his own safety and the safety of his family. And when the tornado came, he was ready. That readiness is the difference between life and death. That's the lesson. Not that tornadoes are scary. Everyone knows that. The lesson is that preparation works. Engineering works. Planning works. And waiting until the warning is issued is too late. Here's what you need to do right now. If you live in Tornado Alley, stop watching this video and research tornado shelter options. Look up FEMA P320. Contact local contractors who build shelters. Get quotes. Compare prices. Apply for FEMA grants if you qualify. And then build a shelter. Don't wait for next tornado season. Don't wait until the forecast shows a moderate risk day. Don't wait until you hear sirens. Because when you hear sirens, it's already too late to start building. You need the shelter now, today, before the next storm forms. If you can't afford a shelter, find the nearest public shelter. Schools, community centers, churches, many have reinforced safe rooms. Know where they are. Know how to get there. Know how long it takes to reach them. Time yourself. Practice the route. Make sure your kids know where to go. Make sure your elderly parents know where to go. Make sure everyone in your household has a plan. Because when the warning is issued, you won't have time to figure it out. You'll have 15 minutes if you're lucky. 5 minutes if you're not. And if you waste those minutes deciding what to do, you'll die. Gary Henderson's story is not unique. There are hundreds of people in Tornado Alley who built shelters and survived tornadoes that destroyed their homes. Their stories don't make national news because survival isn't newsworthy. Death is newsworthy. But survival is the goal. And survival requires action. So take action. Build the shelter. Find a safe room. Make the plan. Do it now. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button. Share this video with everyone you know in Tornado Alley. Let's turn Gary Henderson's story into a movement. Let's normalize tornado shelters. Let's make them as common as smoke detectors and fire extinguishers. Let's make survival the default, not the exception. And let's make sure that when the next EF5 hits, when the black wall crosses the horizon and the sirens wail, everyone has somewhere to go. Everyone has a plan. Everyone survives. Gary Henderson still lives in Moore, Oklahoma. He rebuilt his house on the same foundation, and he kept the shelter. It's still there, 10 feet underground, waiting. He hopes he never needs it again. But if he does, he's ready. Are you?